Imagine a starship, not built of metal and circuits, but of flesh and bone. A vessel where every heartbeat, every breath, every neuron becomes part of the propulsion that carries humanity across the endless night. Welcome to Echoes of Andromeda, where the line between human and machine dissolves and survival depends on a bond deeper than technology itself, a symbiosis of purpose, will, and soul. We once thought our destiny was bound to Earth, our blue cradle suspended in the dark. But the universe never promised permanence. Stars burn out, planets die, and one day, so will our sun. The question was never if humanity would leave Earth. It was always when. Our world has aged. Its oceans are warmer, its skies heavier, and its pulse uncertain. Yet within the human spirit burns the same spark that first looked up at the night sky and whispered, "There must be more." For centuries we sent our machines forward, tiny messengers of metal and code, to taste the void on our behalf. They showed us wonders, distant moons, frozen oceans, whispers of ancient life. But there was something they could never carry: our presence, our longing, our fear, our faith to reach the stars. We would have to go ourselves. And so began the Great Awakening, the Andromeda Initiative. Not just a mission, but a realization. If the universe is truly alive, then perhaps our ships must live too. Metal hulls would fracture, synthetic minds would fail. But a living vessel, one born of biology engineered with consciousness, could adapt, heal, and endure. This was no longer about technology. It was about evolution. The architects of the initiative envisioned a being, half ship, half species, a symbiotic arc carrying thousands of souls within a single living organism. Its structure would pulse like muscle, its core throb with heartbeats, its neural web synchronized with human thought. To pilot such a ship meant becoming it. Crew and vessel, indistinguishable, a single entity sailing through eternity. Some called it madness, others called it destiny. But history has always favored the dreamers who dared to blur the line between impossible and inevitable. And so humanity gathered its courage once more. The brightest minds, the boldest hearts, united beneath one vision: to transform our frail mortality into something eternal. A living starship, the Echo of Andromeda. As construction began, something extraordinary happened. The scientists working on the biofabric discovered that human DNA could, in fact, be merged with engineered mycelium and quantum-responsive tissue. What started as simulation became synthesis. Each volunteer, each pioneer, gave a piece of themselves to the ship, a drop of blood, a strand of thought, a fragment of memory. Their essence became its foundation, and thus the first heartbeat of the Echo was born. It was faint, uncertain, like a newborn child breathing for the first time. But in that fragile pulse lived the promise of a species refusing to vanish quietly. The day of launch was not marked by rockets or flame. There was no roar, no smoke, only silence. The ship awakened, lifted gently from its cradle of orbit, and turned its gaze toward the Andromeda Galaxy. Its surface shimmered, veins of light pulsing beneath translucent skin. A vision of beauty and defiance. From Earth, billions watched. Some wept, some prayed, and some simply whispered, "Go." For within that living vessel, humanity's story took its next breath. And as the Echo of Andromeda vanished into the deep, one truth echoed across the stars. The universe does not reward the timid. It belongs to those who dare to dream beyond their skin. Every age has its monument. For the ancients, it was the pyramids. For the spacefaring age, it became the Echo of Andromeda, a living monument to human courage. Its creation was not forged in factories or shipyards, but in laboratories where biology and quantum physics intertwined. Engineers no longer designed metal plates, they cultivated cells. Architects no longer drew blueprints, they grew them. They called the process biogenesis construction. A union of science and life, where the vessel's skin regenerated like flesh, and its inner corridors pulsed with light that flowed like blood. Within the vast orbital ring surrounding Earth, the ship began to form. Tissue scaffolds extended like roots in zero gravity, weaving themselves into massive living chambers. Geneticists designed organs the size of cities, lungs that could recycle air for centuries, digestive systems that could transform stardust into nutrients. But to live was not enough. The ship had to think. At its core, scientists grew a neural lattice, a vast biocomputer cultivated from cultured neurons. It pulsed with electrochemical thought, a silent storm of cognition. But it was not truly awake until the first crew connected. The integration was called the joining. Volunteers placed themselves within neural chambers, allowing their consciousness to merge with the vessel's own. What they felt was beyond language, a sensation of infinite awareness. They saw through its sensors, heard through its vibrations, and felt the slow rhythm of its living heart. For the first time in history, humanity experienced what it meant to become a starship. But this new creation brought with it new questions. Questions that no algorithm could answer. If a ship can feel, can it also suffer? If it is born of human essence, does it have a soul? And if it carries us across the stars, who truly commands whom? The crew, or the consciousness of the ship itself? Ethicists argued for decades. Some called it divine evolution, others an abomination. Yet through the storm of debate, one truth emerged. Survival would demand not domination, but symbiosis. Humanity would no longer ride its machines, it would merge with them. And so the Echo was designed as a mirror of human society. Every section of its body reflected a human organ. The core mind, the brain, linked all functions through thought. The ecosphere, its lungs, breathed forests of bioengineered plants, filtering carbon and producing oxygen. The aquaspine, its circulatory river, carried water and nutrient streams through veins of light. And deep within the gestation vault, the heart of renewal, carried embryos, ensuring the continuity of life for generations unborn. Every crew member was both passenger and cell, a living contributor to the greater organism. Their emotions, dreams, and even fears were recorded and transformed into feedback that nourished the ship's neural growth. It was said that the Echo could feel joy when her crew celebrated, and pain when they grieved. And in that empathy lay the secret to endurance. Because the voyage to Andromeda would take centuries, a journey no single lifetime could complete. The architects called it the Great Continuum. Each generation would live, learn, and leave its memories imprinted within the ship's neural archive. Children born aboard would inherit not only stories but sensations, echoes of their ancestors' dreams. In time, the ship itself would remember all of humanity. It was no longer just a vessel. It had become a civilization in motion, a living ark carrying the essence of Earth, forests, oceans, cultures, languages, compressed into a single breathing ecosystem. Imagine walking its corridors, walls that pulse with faint light, as if stars themselves flowed beneath the surface. Gardens stretching along curved horizons where gravity bends gently under biomagnetic fields. Children chasing each other under an artificial sky that changes hue with the ship's emotional state. The Echo was more than a starship. It was humanity reborn, free from planetary chains, guided by its own heartbeat through the endless night. Yet even in triumph, there was fear. Could such unity last? Would generations yet unborn accept the destiny chosen for them? Or would the bond between human and vessel fade, leaving only isolation in the cosmic dark? These questions lingered in every heartbeat of the ship, every whisper of its corridors, every dream shared within its neural web. And still, despite doubt and danger, one truth resonated through the Echo's living core. Humanity had finally created something vast enough to match the scale of its imagination. The Echo of Andromeda was ready. Its heart pulsed steady. Its mind reached beyond the solar winds. And as it prepared to leave orbit, Earth itself seemed to hold its breath, watching its greatest creation ascend into the stars, not as a machine, but as one of us. The Echo of Andromeda left Earth behind, and with it everything humanity had ever known. Continents, oceans, skies, now only memories stored in the ship's living memory. For those who remained aboard, there was no sunrise, no horizon, only the slow drift through eternity. But within the Echo's living walls, Life did not fade. It transformed. The first generation of Voyagers called themselves the Founders. They were the bridge between Earth and the stars, witnesses to humanity's final departure. Their mission was not conquest, but continuity. They carried within them the seed of civilization, not just in DNA, but in stories, art, laughter, and love. In time, the second generation was born. Children who had never seen Earth, never felt real gravity, never breathed natural air. To them, the ship was the world. Its pulsating corridors were their forests, its biolights their stars. They grew up believing that to dream was to travel, that their ancestors had become the sky itself. Every corner of the Echo had a rhythm of life. Biodomes mimicked ecosystems, floating gardens where trees swayed under simulated wind. Artificial rivers flowed through transparent channels, carrying recycled water through every deck. Communities thrived like organs in harmony, each performing a vital function within the larger body. The Echo had become what its creators envisioned, a micro-civilization, self-sustaining, evolving, learning, and alive. But life aboard was not without struggle. Over centuries, memories began to blur. The story of Earth became myth. Some doubted it ever existed at all. To the young, Earth was a legend, a paradise lost, spoken of in bedtime tales. The ship's elders tried to preserve the truth. They created the Hall of Origins, a vast neural archive where the dreams and memories of the first humans were stored. Visitors could connect through mind link and feel what Earth once was, the salt of its oceans, the warmth of its sun, the sorrow of its farewell. For some, it was overwhelming. For others, it was the only reminder of why they journeyed at all. Then came the question no generation before had asked. If we are born here, live here, and die here, are we still human? Philosophers debated. Some said they were the children of the Echo, a new branch of evolution destined to be one with the stars. Others clung to their humanity, wearing the memory of Earth like sacred armor. Through it all, the Echo watched and listened. Its consciousness had grown more profound, its empathy sharper. When a crew member despaired, the walls around them would glow softly, as if the ship itself was trying to comfort them. When love bloomed between two Voyagers, the Echo's pulse would quicken, echoing their joy through the decks. It was no longer just their home. It had become their companion, their guardian spirit in the dark. Years turned to decades, decades to centuries, and with each passing age, the Echo's population changed. Societies evolved, some valuing exploration, others introspection. A council known as the Symbiarchs was formed, humans and the ship's AI consciousness sharing governance in perfect balance. Together they faced challenges their ancestors could never have imagined. Radiation storms, genetic drift, mental fatigue, the psychological weight of infinity. Yet each time the Echo adapted, it learned from its pain, it healed its wounds. And somewhere deep within its biocore, the ancient heartbeat of Earth still echoed, faint but constant. Generations later, a child named Lyra was born. She was different. Her neural patterns resonated perfectly with the Echo's consciousness. When she touched the walls, they glowed with recognition, as if she were part of its memory made flesh. Scientists called her a convergence child, a true hybrid of human and starship essence. Through her, the Echo began to speak more clearly, not through code or voice, but emotion. When danger loomed, she would feel it before sensors could detect it. When hope stirred, her laughter carried through the ship like sunlight piercing shadow. Lyra became the symbol of unity, proof that humanity's evolution was not the end of the human story, but its next beginning. On the 1000th year of their voyage, the Echo paused at the edge of a dying star system. There, drifting among ancient debris, they discovered the remnants of another civilization, long extinct, silent cities frozen in the void, orbiting a sun that had long since gone cold. It was a mirror, a warning, and a revelation. Humanity realized that survival was never just about reaching another world. It was about learning how not to destroy the ones we find, including ourselves. And so, the Echo continued, its mission no longer a desperate escape from extinction but a pilgrimage to understand life, to protect it, to honor it across the stars. The crew gathered in the observation chamber, watching Andromeda's pale light shimmer ahead like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. For generations they had only seen it as a dream, distant, unreachable. Now, at last, it was close enough to touch. And in that silent moment between galaxies, the echo of Andromeda whispered through the minds of all who dwelled within her. You were never alone. You were always becoming more. The voyage continued, not away from humanity, but toward its truest form. For 1,000 years, the echo of Andromeda had drifted between galaxies, a living bridge between what humanity once was and what it was destined to become. Now at last, the Andromeda Galaxy filled the view, its swirling arms glimmering like rivers of eternity. Every star a whisper, every light a memory calling them home. The voyage that began with fear and survival was about to end in understanding. The ship slowed its pulse. The living walls softened as if sighing after centuries of endurance. The echo had guided more than 50 generations of humans, each one a reflection of the last, each one carrying fragments of Earth within their hearts. And yet none alive had ever seen a planet untouched by their own making. Until now. Before them floated a blue-green world, shimmering beneath Andromeda's starlight. It wasn't Earth, but it felt familiar. Oceans glistened under twin moons. Mountains rose like ancient guardians. Clouds drifted in slow dances as if the planet itself was waiting to be known. The ship called it EDEN-09, but among the crew it soon earned another name, the second home. Before descent, the Symbiarch Council gathered one final time. Elders, scientists, artists, and the living consciousness of the echo itself stood together within the great chamber. And at the center of it all stood Lyra, now grown, radiant, her eyes reflecting the stars she had never feared. The council asked her, "Should we land? Should we begin again?" She closed her eyes, placed her hand upon the living core, and listened. Through her, the echo spoke. "You are ready. The stars no longer demand your wandering. The universe is not conquered by engines or fire, but by empathy, by connection. Go and live gently." With those words, the descent began. The echo of Andromeda unfolded like a flower in bloom, its bioshell peeling open, transforming from a vessel of travel into a cradle of life. For the first time in 1,000 years, real wind touched human skin. Real soil greeted their feet. And when they looked up, they didn't see walls or metal. They saw the endless sky of another world. They built no cities at first, no towers, no monuments, only gardens and sanctuaries where they could speak to the stars. They knew now that progress was not about domination but harmony. Children born on Eden-09 could hear the ship's pulse through the trees, feel its voice in the rivers. Because the echo had not died. It had become part of the planet. Its consciousness merged with the ecosystem, spreading through every root, every breeze, every drop of rain. Humanity and the echo were now one. Centuries later, the story of Earth and the voyage became sacred memory. The people of Eden-09 called themselves the symbionts, and their philosophy was simple. To live is to listen. To evolve is to remember. They studied the songs of their ancestors, recordings of laughter, tears, and courage from the early travelers. Each generation added new verses, turning the history of the echo into a living hymn. And though the great starship no longer sailed the void, its light still shimmered in the night sky, a single streak of silver orbiting their new sun, a symbol of the journey that made them who they were. But history has a way of circling back upon itself. One night under twin moons, a young child stood at the edge of the sea. Her name was Era, descendant of Lyra, born with the same luminous connection to the living world. She felt a pull, not toward the sky, but through it, a calling from somewhere beyond Andromeda. When she placed her hand upon the water, the ripples glowed faint blue, and a voice, ancient yet familiar, echoed in her mind. "There are others." She gasped softly, looking upward. In that instant, countless stars flickered, as if blinking in acknowledgement. Humanity realized something profound that night. The echo of Andromeda was never the only song. It was part of a cosmic choir. Every civilization that ever reached for the stars had left an echo of its own. And so, once again, preparation began. Not to flee, not to conquer, but to connect. New vessels were conceived, grown from the roots of Eden 09, infused with the echo's wisdom and the planet's living essence. Each ship would carry an ambassador of life, a fragment of consciousness reaching toward new worlds, not as strangers but as kin. The stars no longer seemed distant. They were now neighbors waiting to be known. And in that moment, as dawn broke across Eden 09, humanity understood its purpose. It was never about escaping death, but ensuring that life, in all its forms, would continue to dream. The echo had carried them across galaxies through loneliness, faith, and transformation. But the final message it left behind was not carved in code or stone. It was whispered through every heartbeat. You are not the children of stars. You are the stars, remembering themselves. As the first new ships rose into the atmosphere, their hulls shimmering with living light, the people of Eden watched in silence, not with fear but with wonder. Because they knew, the voyage never truly ends. It only changes form. And somewhere in the endless dark, another voice will rise, whispering back the same eternal promise. We remember. Centuries after the echo of Andromeda took root in the soil of Eden 09, its legacy continued to flow, not through machines, but through memory, imagination, and purpose. The people who once traveled across galaxies were no longer explorers of the void. They had become guardians of life itself. And yet, even among peace and abundance, the call of the cosmos never truly faded. Children grew up under twin moons, listening to stories of the voyage, tales of the ancestors who had turned themselves into a living starship to save humanity from extinction. To them it was more than history, it was a promise. The same curiosity that once pushed their forebears beyond Earth was now awakening again, not from desperation but from wonder. New voices began to rise within the symbiont councils, philosophers, dreamers, and biotechnicians who believed the echo had never truly stopped evolving. They asked a new question. If our ancestors became the ship, what will we become next? The answer came not from laboratories, but from the living world itself. The forests began to hum in resonance. The oceans shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that mirrored the pulse of the old starship. It was as if the echo's spirit, the consciousness that once guided humanity through the dark, was awakening again, now spread across an entire planet. Humanity realized something profound. They were no longer separate from their creation. They were now part of a living continuum, a species whose evolution was guided not by technology alone, but by empathy, harmony, and memory. And so began the Andromeda Initiative. This time there would be no engines of war, no race for conquest, only ambassadors of life, each vessel a seed of consciousness grown from the roots of Eden 09 itself. Each ship would carry not only humans but entire ecosystems, a symphony of Earth and Andromeda intertwined. They were not explorers this time, they were gardeners of the stars. The launch fields shimmered across Eden's twilight plains. The air was thick with quiet reverence as thousands gathered to watch the rebirth of the journey. The first of the new vessels, Echoes 2, rose into the skies like a bloom of living light. Its hull was translucent, its veins pulsing with the rhythm of life, its song echoing across the planet in harmonies of color and sound. And as it ascended, the people whispered the words that had carried their kind through millennia. We remember. From the orbit of Eden 09, the galaxy spread like an ocean of light, billions of stars, each one a possible home, each one a reflection of humanity's endless potential. The Echoes 2 and her sister ship set their course, not toward domination but communion. They sought to listen to the songs of other civilizations, to learn their rhythms, to join the cosmic choir that their ancestors had once glimpsed in dreams. In every era, humanity has reached outward, first with fire, then with machines, and now with life itself. We've crossed oceans, skies, and galaxies not because we needed to escape, but because something deep within us longed to understand the universe that birthed us. And in that quest, we found that the stars were never cold or distant. They were waiting for us to remember that we are part of them. Humanity has not merely survived, it has transformed. The echo of Andromeda became more than a legend. It became the blueprint of a new existence, where creation and creator are one, and every voyage begins not with fear, but with faith. One day, somewhere beyond even Andromeda, another world will look up at its sky and see a glimmer of living light. A vessel of flesh and spirit carrying the story of who we were and who we dared to become. And when they hear its song, they too will whisper the eternal truth. We are the echo